when you're buying or selling a property, or you're refinancing a property, a lender wants you to go through a title company to have insurance. It's essentially making sure that when you're buying a property or when you're selling it, that everybody you're buying from the right owner, the correct person, and that there's no liens on the property that other than maybe if you're getting a mortgage and it's coming on, but everything else is you're getting it free and clear, from the prior owner. Yeah. I kind of back to another sports reference, I guess, but I kind of feel like I tell people I feel like being a title company is like being a referee in basketball. Nobody really cares about you until something goes wrong, and then they definitely want to know about you and figure out your whole background and everything.
Today, I have Jason Forgey of the Forgey Law Group with us to discuss title law and estate planning. Welcome to our podcast, where we discuss success and the mindset on your worst day be good, on your best day be great, and on every other day get better. I know you're a successful attorney, estate planner, and businessman in general, and I'm sure you probably live by that success never rests philosophy. Maybe you don't call it by those ways, but I think everybody generally does. So let's jump into it. First of all, I just want to see if you could tell me a little bit about your background. I know you came out of California, but tell us a little bit about your youth and how you ended up in law and then ultimately in Texas.
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for having me, Coach. I'm glad to be put in the game here for once, and I'm enjoying doing this and being a part of this. Cool. So thanks for having me. Yes, I heard your mantra. I've heard similar ones like good, better, best. Never let it rest until your good is better and your better is best.
I can't remember all that.
And one of my other mantras, honestly, is just knowing what I do and being I'm an attorney, but I'm a small businessman, and I help people and I help my employees. But really, it's loving people until they ask why. And so that's part of what I do and how we do things. So yeah, where I'm from, like you said, I'm a California guy. I'm one of those pesky Californians that moved here to Texas and ruins everything, right? But I like to say I've been here long enough to complain about all the other Californians moving here.
All right.
So yeah, we moved here about almost 19 years ago. Me and my wife, we got married in 2004. Got married, went on our honeymoon, and moved to Texas. So we've been here a while now. I grew up there, Central California, farm labor community. Most of my friends, their parents worked in the fields and spoke Spanish, and so it was it wasn't the fancy Beverly Hills, or anything like that, right? It was a lot of agriculture and a lot of poverty, and so yeah, we kind of learned. We kind of learned to go from there, and went to school in Southern California at Cal Baptist University in Riverside and law school in San Diego. Right. And finished up here at SMU, and my degree's still back from San Diego. So yeah, but we've been here ever since. Love it.
It's been here a long time. Mm-hmm. So we talked a little earlier, you said you did have a little bit of an athletic background in high school. Me being an ex-high school coach and now an entrepreneur, I've just seen so much how it's translated into my business and coaching myself and coaching other people around me. So I always like to ask, when I definitely find out you have that background, can you recall anything in your business, what maybe drove you into the law, college, whatever it may be, that, you can kind of go back to that athletic background and
yeah, absolutely. I mean, sports is not just entertainment, it's really life for a lot of people. Well, I mean, gosh, even growing up playing Little League Baseball, Tommy Gonzalez was my coach for 6 years between the ages of 6 and 10, 6, 7, and 10, 11, somewhere in there. And just just knowing that you had a group of guys and, that you had, somebody besides your dad telling you what to do, or your mom telling you what to do, another father figure in your life. Mm-hmm. And, when you're 7, you don't really think about that. But now when I'm, 44 years old and have my own kids, I start thinking about how important that was to have another voice in my, in my head that was positive, and they weren't talking about just, hey, this is how you turn a double play, or this is how you stretch for a ball on first base, or this is how you swing a bat. It was more about life, and this is how you act, and then, of course, into high school, I played basketball I'm 6'3", so I'm not super tall, but I'm tall enough, But I went to a small Christian school where, like I like to say that, between kindergarten and 12th grade, the highest they had was 60 kids enrolled. So I like to say I was the top 3 of my class. I'll let you guess how many people were in my class. But so I actually finished high school early. I was 16, graduated 2 other people. But I played for a basketball team at another school in the big city, because our school didn't have it. We were too small. Okay. But the camaraderie that you have with kids, I think especially in high school, a lot of high school football programs have this. But it's an impressionable age,
Yeah.
And so I can think back to, high school coaches, the guys that I was around, practicing every day, hanging out on the weekends, learning life with them, all those kind of things. And then just the fact that, sports is not, unless you're even things like golf, it's a team sport. There's so many people involved in what you do. Mm-hmm. It's not a selfish thing. You have to learn that there's a whole lot more to life than just you. And I think basketball is one of the best sports to ever do that, to teach you about how, hey, you're responsible for other people. You're responsible for the program you're representing. And I think all that translates to very well to what I do today. Yeah. Being a small business owner, we have, like you said, I have a law firm. It's affiliated with Chicago Title, so we do a lot of real estate closings and whatnot. But we have 6 offices around the Metroplex. I have a team of 8, and so just knowing that, finding the right people on the bus, as I think Jim Collins says, mm-hmm. and getting the right people on the bus and loving them and knowing that they are working super hard, and not only for you but for them. But it's more of a team above all, and I love being able to lead my team and do what they do. So it's definitely translated.
Cool. Yeah, it's something I always tried to express to my players was it's always more than X's and O's. Like, I know you're going to not like some of the things we're doing now, but You're going to understand it when you're 35, 40 years old maybe. You're going to realize the details matter and all these little things. So. Oh,
absolutely. Oh, yeah, there's tons of things like that. Little details matter, and little things that other people don't notice, but even sometimes your coach doesn't notice. Sometimes the boss doesn't notice, but you hear about later, oh, you went at 9:30 at night when you were 6 months pregnant to go do a mobile closing for somebody, and because they were leaving the country, in the morning. Okay, that's one of them. And those are some of the things that, when you find the right people and they have that same sort of discipline or love mm-hmm. For other people and want to serve people like that, it just comes naturally, and it's wonderful to see.
All right, well, let's jump into title law, the excitement of title law.
We'll try not to fall asleep while we do this.
So, first of all, let's just talk real quick. What exactly is title law, and why is it important for property owners to have an understanding of it to some degree?
Sure. Well, yeah, being a title attorney is essentially we represent Chicago Title and it's title insurance, right? So when you're buying or selling a property or you're refinancing a property, a lender wants you to go through a title company to have insurance. It's essentially making sure that when you're buying a property or when you're selling it, that everybody you're buying from the right owner, the correct person, and that there's no liens on the property that other than maybe if you're getting a mortgage and it's coming on, but everything else is you're getting it free and clear, from the prior owner. Yeah. And most of the time people think that's not a big deal, and honestly most of the time it's not going to be a big deal, but it can become a big deal if you're not doing it. And we're I kind of back to another sports reference, I guess, but I kind of feel like I tell people I feel like being a title company is like being a referee in basketball. Nobody really cares about you until something goes wrong, and then they definitely want to know about you and figure out your whole background and everything. It's a lot of behind the scenes. Nobody wants to see how the sausage is made, but it's definitely a needed service and provides big value for people, and it's a clearinghouse for everybody to know that their money is secure. It's going to one particular place, and everybody's getting paid out at the end of closing, and then for most transactions, you're getting to celebrate at the end. So.
Yeah. Oh, let me ask you this: if I'm, a lot of people think they're just going to go buy from the neighbor for cash and things of that nature. Does that still go through and need to go through a title company?
Yeah, good question, Coach. But yeah, I think, and maybe you're a realtor, so you probably would agree with me, but yes, absolutely. I mean, we see this all the time. all the time, where, oh yeah, well, we just bought this from a neighbor, or he sold it to us, and we, cash for deed or whatever, and we're making payments for 10 years, da da da. Well, I mean, again, you may be buying it from your neighbor, but was your neighbor married at some point? Did they have a spouse that passed away? Did they get divorced? What do we know about them? Do they really own it? We had a deal a couple months ago, and we had a realtor down in the Mansfield area, and this was in South Fort Worth. The house was probably worth about $60,000, maybe $50,000. The last deed in the chain of title that we had was from 1967, and it was the grandparents who had bought the house.
Wow.
And so it had changed hands to, the uncle was living there, and then the grandkid was living there, and now they're wanting to sell it because otherwise it was getting condemned by the city, and now they're looking around like, well, I thought just he could sign off on it. Well, that's not how that works, right? People need to have wills or affidavits, and you have siblings, and there's heirs from the estates, and it can get really tricky. Not to mention there could be liens on the property. If somebody had a mowing liens on a property that's not taken care of, or even mortgages. You're buying all that subject to that. So you could be in a whole world of trouble that you didn't think you were getting into. It's a relatively cheap considering the alternative.
Yeah. I obviously ask you this question because I have clients or friends that call me all the time because, here in Texas, everybody wants, land's not cheap. Mm-hmm. So if they can get it from a neighbor, they want to. And they're always like, Michael, how do I handle this? It's like, well, here's a title company. You both need to be working through them to make sure, you own this once you paid them, I guess is the biggest takeaway from that.
Oh, yeah. And, there's times I probably get a call about once every week from somebody saying, hey, I own my house and I want to put my kid on the deed. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, can you do this? Well, yes. The answer is yes, but why? I'm a lawyer. I ask questions like a 3-year-old. Why?
Why?
What are you trying to accomplish by doing this? Because in my brain, I got the title stuff going on. Okay, you do that, you're messing with community property and homestead issues and estate issues and all this kind of thing. And well, if I die, I want my kid to be able to just take my house and be fine. Like, okay, well, that may or may not accomplish what you're trying to do. Are you married? Do you have stepkids? Or your spouse to see? You could end up giving up half your property to one kid and the other half to all 6 kids, the other kids. There's all sorts of issues that could come with a problem.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's trying to help people on the front end just because I have that title background. I came from oil and gas, did oil and gas title before I got into the residential side and the commercial side. But yeah, it's more trying to help people on the front end. And then with title, it's not only the insurance, it's really the fact that you're getting everything clear so you can close means that it's clear up to that point going forward, which is nice too. So.
Yeah. So, let's jump into what are some of the most common issues that do arise, during a title search. When it does come to you, you start searching the past of the property, what's some common issues that come up, and then, how do you resolve those?
Right. Okay. Well, the biggest one would be death. I mean, I think death in title happens a lot, and especially on residential stuff. It's not like the oil and gas stuff that gets far more complicated, but usually it's you have somebody that's deceased on title. And so it's, again, title's really connecting the dots from when the patent or the sovereign, that's whoever the government was, country of Mexico, state of Texas, country of Texas, or the United States of America, depending on whoever it was originally gave the land grant, all the way up to the present, connecting those dots all the way forward. So when you have somebody who died in title, well, now we're missing a dot, and we kind of have to connect the dots, So that could be as simple as, okay, let's find where their will is. Was it probated? Or it could be, okay, you don't have a will, or it wasn't probated, and that was a long time ago. Well, let's get an affidavit of heirship so we can figure out who the legal heirs of the property, that kind of thing. So death is probably the biggest one. There's other ones like divorce is another one. The deed goes into husband and wife, but now on your contract you look, and now only wife is selling the property. Again, a missing dot, right? You got to connect the dots. So let's figure out what happened. Did somebody pass away? Is there a divorce? So let's get it figured out. The other thing I would say is there's liens that will pop up. IRS liens, property tax liens. Prior mortgages that were refinanced out, but the mortgage company never filed a release. So now we kind of have to go find out where that came from. Mm-hmm. Can we get it released? All that other boring stuff. So
Amy and I had a example come up on her father's house.
Mm.
It was reverse mortgaged.
Ooh.
We had to move him out of it due to health, and then we went to sell it. And when we pulled title, his neighbor had filed a mechanics lien in the 70s.
Oh boy.
Over a fence of something. I don't know if they shared a fence.
They
or
might
what.
have, yeah.
But anyway.
Oh gosh.
The guy had passed away, a long time ago.
Oh gosh.
So I think it just got written off.
Well, and that's some of the benefits of what we do is knowing who you're underwriting with. And so Chicago Title is owned by Fidelity, which is the biggest title company in the world. And the relationship that I have as a lawyer with our title insurance underwriters, who are all lawyers too, I can kind of do that lawyer to lawyer speak. And it really helps to have good relationships with them because you can present things to them. Most lawyers are in the business of telling you no, or they're so worried about litigation and potential liability. They're saying you can't do this, can't do this. And of course, we're in the business, you're a realtor, we're in the business of getting a deal done, right? And how can we do this?
How can we get it done?
Can we do this? How can we do this?
Exactly.
And so it's always great, those kind of situations. You're talking to an underwriter saying, okay, this was a long time ago. Is it statute of limitations run? Is there somewhere we can kind of insure around this? And usually we have some good people on our side. So.
All right. So what types of title insurance are available in Texas? And I don't know. I would assume there's different titles in different states, how they handle it.
Yeah. So I don't know a ton about other states. I am from California, but I wasn't licensed there. I had moved here before there. But Texas has its own separate sort of title industry, if you will. So we have our own rules and all that kind of stuff, our own endorsements. But essentially, you get an owner's title policy and you get a lender's title policy for almost everything. There are a few other things out there, but it's a little more abstract, leasehold policies for commercial leases and stuff like that. But really, one policy is for you, and now you're the owner, so it's insuring you for any of the prior issues that would have been in title, or whatever, build lines or something weird, and then the lender has a policy as well to protect their interest in the loan, because they want to make sure they get paid out if there's some sort of claim from a prior history. So,
are the costs of these together, or are they separate?
Yeah, they're separate. But when you get a title policy, when you get an owner's policy, it's set by the state of Texas based on the sales price, and if you're purchasing sale or a loan amount. But the lender's policy is another $100. It's just added on, included as well.
All right. Well, now I want to talk about title lock protection.
Okay, sure.
And, is it a real thing? Is it a scam? Does the average person need it? As a lawyer, an attorney.
Right. Well, so when you said we should talk about this, the first thing I think about is the commercials you see on TV. And I'm not a big proponent of fear-driven advertising or business running. And I do estate plan. I'm sure we're going to talk a little bit about that too. I mainly do real estate closings, but if I market the estate plan, I don't do it on, hey, you might die one day, you better come talk to me right now. It's just not the way I operate. So it makes me a little hesitant when I hear them say, oh my gosh, everybody's losing their home because somebody just stole your deed from you. I'm like, well, I guess in theory it could happen. Does it happen very often? I doubt it. I don't know the price points on all that stuff. But here in Texas, most states or most counties, it's electronic recording. If you were to show a deed changing hands, the county tax office would notify you saying, hey, this is going to another, the bill's going to another address, and it would probably trigger you to know what's going on. If it's $50 one time, then okay, I guess if you want to pay money for something that's probably not going to help you, then kind
of like getting your laminated title after you close.
Yeah, have you ever gotten those? Your clients probably get those letters. Hey, we'll get you your deed for you for $75 and mail it to you. And I'm like, man, it's recorded in the deed office. You don't need some official. Yeah, so I think I wouldn't say it's a scam, but I don't have it personally, so
you don't personally have it for yourself,
right?
So. Could you think of a unique case that you could tell us about that's happened, in title for you?
Yes, yes, I can think of a couple. So one I think we had a long time ago was I called it an East Texas special. It was out in Henderson County, and it was a mobile home on a lot, and it was about $55,000 property. So it was not like a big dollar deal or anything, but an investor came to it with us, and he had signed the contract with, whoever. And so we pull title like we normally do. This is why you don't just get a deed and go forward, right? So we pulled title and we realized, okay, this was in two people's names. What's the deal? And it wasn't in the guy you were dealing with. So what's going on here? Okay, well, 30 years ago, boyfriend and girlfriend bought this trailer from I call him like slumlord, he bought it from slumlord, and he owner financed it to him. And so we had a deed of trust, a mortgage document filed. We had a deed filed. 10 years into their 20-year term, boyfriend died. And girlfriend was distraught and said, you know what, I'm just handing the keys back to the owner guy, slumlord guy. And they just walked away. And so 20 years later, we're getting a contract from real estate investors saying, hey, I want to buy this property. What do we need to do? I'm like, well, we got a big problem here. We've got, and it kind of it bleeds into everything we talk about here. It's first of all, if you're slumlord landlord, maybe you need an LLC. Maybe you need to get company docs and that kind of thing, rather than just owning everything in your own name. If you're boyfriend and girlfriend living together and it's a long-term relationship, you probably need wills in place to say who gets what, because in Texas, common law marriage really isn't a thing unless you prove very specific things. So other states, or you hear kind of like the old wives' tales, oh, well, we lived together for 2 years, so we're common law married. Not in Texas. It's very specific things. You have to hold out as husband and wife. People need, maybe you go by his last name. There's lots of different factors, like a 4 or 5 factor test. So it's not just, and we've had this happen a lot. Oh, well, we're common law married. Well, more than likely you're not. And so same thing with this. So now we had a girlfriend who had long since been gone, who now had come back around, which was really nice because she was helping us find everybody. Well, boyfriend died. Had tons of heirs, had siblings who had all died, and had kids who, so we had, I think, 17 different heirs that we had to clean up. And we had to go back and kind of, nobody had a payoff amount for a mortgage from 20 years ago. So we were trying to figure out, okay, well, and then we had a landlord guy who thought he was getting this whole $55,000. Well, guess what? You don't own this property, and you may be able to get adverse possession or some other legal mechanism, but, are you going to pay the money to go spend it in court and get all this, judgments and everything and orders? No, he's not going to. So again, it came down to, knowing title, knowing the human element of what's going on, because there's a lot of human element going on here, as well as estate plan, of course, and trying to come to an agreement where all parties are happy, and not to mention locating 17 different heirs who are, across 10 different states, paying everybody out, recording all the affidavits, recording all the deeds into one person, and all that kind of stuff. And we finally got it done. It was about a 6-month process, but it was a crazy deal. But it's one I use often when I'm talking to a big group of people, just because it goes, it encompasses a lot. Number one, title can be really weird and crazy. Number two, humans can be really weird and crazy. Business is involved. Being a landlord tenant is involved. Somebody passes away. Now we're talking about you need a will, estate planning, all that kind of thing.
There's a lot tied up in that story.
We're glad we took care of it. So
which that kind of brings me to another question about seller financing.
Okay.
So when the seller finances, do they still own that property? Do they still have right to tell the buyers what they can do on it? Things of that nature?
I'll give you the lawyer answer. It depends, but mainly no. In Texas, a lot of times people want to do what they call a contract for deed, where it's like a rent to own, essentially. I'll give you dollars for several years, and then at the end you give me a deed. Well, that's for the most part illegal in Texas, or void. And there are certain ways around it, but none that you want to deal with, especially if it's a residential type deal. So most of the time, no, you don't own it. You're essentially the bank, just like you have a mortgage on your home, and Bank of America or Wells Fargo, whoever is your bank, or Rocket Mortgage, whoever. I don't know if you have a sponsor. I mean, we can throw them.
No sponsors.
Okay. Brought to you by but essentially you're the lender, you're the bank. So they own the house, the deed transfers to the new owner, and in fact I just drew up some of these an hour ago for somebody doing a lot out in Terlingua, out in West Texas. But it was owner finance, and they're making payments, and there's just terms just like any other deal, and at the end you file a release, but they own it as of closing.
just like if they had bought it from
Yep.
a bank.
Yep.
Perfect. All right, let's move on to a little bit of probate and estate planning.
Sure.
What are the key differences between probate and non-probate assets, first of all, and how does that affect estate planning?
Okay, so yeah, probate is just really, so probate and non-probate difference is really, do you have a will or do you not, in a lot of ways. So
Sure.
if you have a will is not valid until it's probated in a probate court. So we've had that a lot of times too, where somebody comes to you with a closing or document, says, well, my dad owned this and he gave it to me. Here's his will. Okay, well, was his will probated? Well, no, but his will says it goes to me. I'm like, well, it doesn't go to you until the court says it goes to you, right? And they validate, essentially the court is validating a will. And so that would be a probate asset, is anything that passes through the probate process.
Okay.
A non-probate asset is anything that avoids probate. So you may have heard people say, sometimes it's a lawyer, sometimes financial advisors, sometimes it's your next door neighbor who just wants to sound fancy. They say, hey, you need to get a trust because that avoids probate, and yeah, it can. And that's a big deal in some states. Not always in Texas. Kind of just, again, it depends. I think it's a very specific thing to the fact-dependent kind of thing. But not needed as much as other states where going to court and going to probate takes a long time and it costs a lot of money. Here in Texas, not usually as much time or money. And so it's almost as easy to probate a will. Non-probate assets are essentially accounts that have beneficiaries on them. So bank accounts at a bank, you usually have a transfer on death or payable on death, and it goes to spouse or kids or whoever,
Okay.
beneficiary. 401k, same thing, right? Those are retirement accounts that you can put a beneficiary on there, which means upon death, it goes directly to them. It passes outside of probate and no need for probate for those assets. Okay. Usually real property, so homes or land, any kind of real property, real estate has to pass through probate unless it's in a trust. But now even in Texas, there are provisions where you can do something like a transfer on death deed, which I just drafted one of those today too. Transfer on death deed allows you, it essentially doesn't transfer. It's kind of in the name in case you hadn't noticed, but on death, it will go to whoever you list as your beneficiary.
Okay.
And it's revocable, which means you can take it away. But if you didn't have that and you just owned your real estate, it would be one of the assets that you file an inventory on, and it would go according to your will. So if you had a specific person in your will that gets your house, they would get it, so long as the will was proved up in probate. If it's all equally to your beneficiaries or your heirs, then it would go to them. So there are ways even around that. So most people, suburbanites like us, they can get away with, if they do it correctly, not needing to probate their will. Although I think you need a will no matter what, because people mess up, people sell a house, buy a new one, maybe they don't get a transfer on death deed, those kind of things, or even life estate deeds. But so you need it as a backup, because there's always something that might end up in your estate that you didn't plan on, and so it's good backup.
All right. So how can a person ensure that their estate is distributed according to their wishes after their death? And, what role, does a will play in that process?
Yeah, so, a will plays a major process in that for a lot of people. I guess we kind of, I don't want to sound too like I'm duplicating too much, but a lot of it is really the pre-planning of everything. It makes sense to plan, and talking to a lawyer really, I think, helps, because people, we do this for a living, so it's definitely helps. Yeah. I've seen a lot of people try to do it themselves, which I don't know. Maybe it's a cost thing. Maybe it's just you don't want to talk to somebody. It's uncomfortable talking about death or talking about finances or family, that kind of thing. But it is worth it getting it done, I think.
Well, I think that gets us right into, what are some of the most important things that a person should be considering when they're planning their estate? And, what are some of the common misconceptions about the process?
Well, I think the things they should be thinking about are, first of all, if you have minor kids, that's probably the biggest thing I hear from parent-age kids, anyway, I'm getting confused here. You know what I'm saying? Parents with children, is they think that's the first thing they think: who's going to get my kids if something happens to me? And that's usually kind of the reason that they start doing this. They're about to head out of town on a vacation without the children. Oh gosh, we need to get our wills done. That kind of thing. And so for a lot of it is really just trying to figure out ahead of time what's going to happen with my stuff, and then, but that's only half the estate planning gig, is the will. The rest of it is, what happens if I can't make decisions for myself? I'm still alive and kicking, or at least alive, and I can't make those decisions for myself. I'm incapacitated, either temporarily or long term. Who's going to make those decisions for me as well? And so it's really thinking through that. There's a lot of family dynamics that go into that. So I wish it was as easy as, hey, my wife's going to take over this and my kids will get it when I die. And for a lot of people, that's true. But for other people, hey, I'm divorced and I don't know if I trust my ex-wife, or this is my second marriage, and so we've got a blended family or Brady Bunch type situation, So now it's okay, well, are all the kids going to be treated equally? What's going to happen if I die first? Is my wife going to take the rest of my money and not give any to my kids because she hates my kids? And so there's a lot of that. It can get complicated, and those definitely are times where you need to talk to somebody and kind of go through that. And the other side of that is communication, and communication obviously with your attorney, but with your family and the people that you're nominating for executor and powers of attorney and those kind of things. Talking to them, letting them know, because if they're acting on your behalf, whether you're alive or you're gone, they need to know what your values are. And most of them will know, these are my financial values. They know, hey, if you pass away, you don't want your kid to have a Maserati, maybe a Toyota would be more in the ballpark, so they know your values, but there's a lot of discretion for them to do the right thing rather than a lot of handcuffs.
So sometimes I imagine you have to act like a counselor, not just an attorney.
Yeah.
When you have some of these people in front of you. You have any specific examples of something like that? Or
Absolutely, and it's more, it's kind of reading the room, trying to figure out why they're doing this. Sometimes it's your what you would call your standard or normal couple, lives in the suburbs, has one house, they both work, or maybe one works and have a couple kids, and they just want to get their stuff done, and in place. But other time, heck, I got a call yesterday, I said I was at that Realtor Expo, but I got a call from one of our good lender friends. Dad was just diagnosed with a condition, and they're hoping it's not terminal, but he's going to have to get some treatment and be in a facility for like a month, And so he's like, hey, he's going in on Sunday. Is there anything we can do? And so I said, yeah, I'll get on. Let's do a Zoom call and we'll talk to him. And so I love the fact that I'm able to talk to people, and then sometimes it's, they're closing on a house and it's the greatest day of their life. Yeah. And sometimes they're calling you because their dad just got diagnosed with something, and that's hard.
Yeah.
And it's hard for them, obviously, but of course it's hard for me too. These are friends of mine, not just people I work with, And so being able to talk them through those issues to make them feel comfortable, to feel like a rock when things are not, a shelter in the time of storm, right? Definitely. And to know that, you're doing the best that you can to put them in a position to succeed, and put those provisions out there and talk about them in an open and honest way, but still, hey, we can still talk about this like normal people, nobody's gone yet. We're all here, and so let's talk about it. But there's a lot of counseling involved in that, a lot of nuances in human behavior, those kind of things. But it's really important it's not just these are heart issues. These aren't transactional issues that we deal with. And when real estate for you, the same thing, Mike. And so it's the same thing. And so it's really, it's very rewarding, I'd say, and it's an honor to be able to do that and help people. And so met with them, and they're going. I drafted it earlier this morning, just kind of on in a rush, and we're going to get it signed at our office later today before he goes in for his treatment. So and I've done that once before with and I don't know if that's one of the ones you're going to ask, but one of the cases that we've taken, had a lady who was at Baylor Dallas, and she was dying of cancer. And a friend of a friend kind of called and said, hey, I don't know how much longer she's got, but I'd like you to come down and see what you can do and get some stuff done in estate planning. So I went down, talked to her, brought my laptop with me down at Baylor. I'm up in Frisco like you are. And so went down there, talked to her, made sure she was of right mind and all that kind of stuff. We want to make sure they have capacity, and made everybody leave the room so I could talk to her specifically, so she, nobody felt like she was being coerced or anything. Yeah. And got her estate planning done, got it printed out, brought it back, had her sign it. Found out from my friend she passed away the next day. And it was, it's just kind of like this the circle of life type stuff. But it's amazing to see that you were able to help somebody in a time they really needed, and basically they were holding on just to get things done and make them feel like they had their family taken care of.
Well, that's got to be very rewarding to be able to be that
Absolutely
final piece of the puzzle, I guess, on something like that. So how does being a husband and a father, play into some of your strategies when you're helping people in these life matters? I'm sure thinking about your family helps you guide these other families some.
I think so. And I think some of it is, everybody likes to think they're smart enough, especially when they're 20, 25 years old, and you know everything. And lawyers, we always think we're the smartest people in the room anyway. So it's just the experience of life is really helpful. And so then there's some of it I haven't experienced. Both my parents are still around, and so I haven't had to go through a really close death kind of thing. Grandparents have passed away, of course, but knowing what I know now, just being a little bit older, I guess I'm middle-aged now, but having kids who are they're all out of diapers now, but they're still elementary, middle school age, and so you can kind of understand there's just different things at play when they're this age versus when maybe they're 18 or 20. So now they're legally an adult, but they're not always making adult decisions, and so those are different conversations that I have with people looking at estate planning, like, well, yeah, they're 18, and you have $1 million life insurance policy, but if something happens to you, do you want Johnny to have $1 million dropped in his lap, or should we maybe make a trust and get some, some of that provisions and guardrails, if you will? So, it definitely helps. Being a husband and a father, it does play into that. And honestly, even my wife is an attorney as well, and just being, we've been married almost 19 years, and so to be married to somebody who's spent a lot of time trying to work her way up, doing that firm rat wheel, I guess, if you will, and trying to work their way up the ladder, and ultimately we gave that up because it's just not worth it. It's but she works at a firm now. But seeing all that has really helped me to be a better boss. I mean, most of my we have 7 or 8 employees, and a lot of them are in their 20s. And when I first met them, they were 20 something and single, and now they're still 20 something. I keep getting older. I feel like they're the same age, but now they're married and they have their own kids of their own, and knowing that I'm providing a great culture and a great atmosphere for them to thrive and not only survive but thrive. And now seeing them have their own beautiful families and growing their careers and everything too. I learned a lot from being the husband of a successful attorney, and maternity leaves and those kind of things that. When our first was born, my wife didn't know if she was getting maternity leave until 2 weeks before our baby was born. And I've been proud to be able to do things for my little team, like 3 months paid leave, for maternity leave, and them knowing that they had a comfortable environment to come back to, and they weren't stressed out about my boss is going to hate me if I'm not back in 2 weeks, that kind of thing. And it's being married and having children it helps me with my clients and with my business alike.
Okay. All right, well, let's wrap it up. I wanted to see if there's anything else you'd like to share before we finish.
Well, when we're talking about real estate, it's important to work with people you know, like, and trust. When you're doing estate planning, it's important that you feel comfortable with who you're talking to, and it's important to get it done. I mean, I care, but I don't care if it's with me. I want you to get it done and be comfortable and feel like you did something that's going to help your family. Yeah. And I know you deal with this too, because you're out there looking for other agents for your team and that kind of thing. But for me, it's like I was saying before, finding the right people to get on the bus. Those kind of things are really important to me too. And I've looked to, I know you're a basketball coach, or at least you're a former basketball coach, and we were talking a little hoop earlier. But for me, it's really important that I model a lot of what I do after things I've learned from basketball teams, and like I was telling you, I was a Spurs fan, and Coach Pop and their whole organization. It was those kind of things are it was really important to me on how they treat their players, which how I treat my employees, and interpersonal, and this whole thing is relationship driven, in real estate. So
well, man, I appreciate you coming on, and we'll do it again soon.
Absolutely, man. We appreciate
you,
it, Mike. Thanks for having me.